walked for several days and several nights to the south of Cornwall, mainly because I ran out of money for train fare, to meet an artist. Not the most, it's not only an artist. I mean, this chap was responsible for one of the most groundbreaking British television series called Spitting Image. So I hope to interview him now on this lovely sunny day. Hope to not keep you waiting long.
No.
Wow, what's this contraption?
This sculpture is to do with my desire to create two entities which communicate through movement. So you could say when this moves, it affects that piece. And if there was more wind, it would be more apparent. Now the movement of that can then affect this piece. So it's a kind of relationship of movement.
Would I be right in referring to you as a kinetic artist?
Yeah, you would. It's a form of art that interested me after my time with puppets, where I recognised the fact that, or the reality that you could get so much more from a caricature by turning it into a puppet because of the element of movement. Movement can only exist in time. So when I sort of stopped making representations of politicians, I thought, well, I like to make abstract shapes move in time, and I find that people do find the pieces quite interesting. There's this basic sort of thing that people look at a painting in the National Gallery for 3 seconds and move on. Mm-hmm. I do know that people look at the things I make they give it longer time. Mm-hmm. And I like that, you know.
So of course you're talking about Spitting Image. We'll come to that later on. With regard to your sculptures, are there any others you want to show?
Yes, there's a couple more here. Shall we go and have a look at them?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, yeah. Okay.
Cool. How do you go about designing them? Do you just jump straight in, or do you make small?
I start with drawings, and then from a drawing I make a small maquette to turn it into a 3D object that I can see if one piece is going to clash with another. Because, I mean, okay, I could do that all on a computer if I went for a 5-year college course, but it's easier for me to make something out of cardboard and see what happens, you know. So once I've got that, then I can make the bigger pieces. Okay, here's another little one, but again it's working on the same principles as the bigger ones we've been looking at, in the sense that there are two entities to it which can affect each other, and that's the game I like playing. This one again could do with a breath of wind today, but we're just not getting it.
So you've not always lived in Cornwall. Would you say your move here has affected your?
Well, I was born in Cambridge, and I spent my time in London in the 60s and 70s, and did have the opportunity to move down here later in life, and I really love it because it's a superb landscape and there's a tradition of art.
Well, this is some of your newer art.
Yeah.
You've been doing it for a few years, I gather.
Yes.
Can we have a peek at some of your older stuff?
Yeah, we have to go to the studio for that.
Studio?
Okay.
Go on, lead the way.
Yeah, yes, this one.
Cool. So we're here in your studio now, and there's lots of your work around. Is this some of your older work? Is that right?
Yeah. These drawings go back to the early 70s. I used to work for the press as a caricaturist and a cartoonist. This is Edward Heath, who was a forgotten Prime Minister nowadays, and Prince Philip, and that's Reginald Maudlin, who was really famous for falling asleep in the House of Commons. So that's really why I started to work on caricature of prominent people.
So caricaturing in itself has been going for hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's a very old tradition, and especially it's a very old tradition in this country in the sense that it's an unbroken tradition. It's been going on for about 600 years. And of course it was encouraged by the invention of the printing press and the being able to print pictures from and reproduce and then put them into public circulation, and then onto the televisual media and so on.
Do you have examples of older work, of old caricatures from the past?
Oh, from the past. Well, from work of...
This is now going towards...
From work of this kind. This was for Private Eye. This was for the Sunday Times. What we're actually doing was simply taking the drawn black and white newspaper cartoon into colour with three-dimensional models which were photographed. But then, naturally enough, these became puppets for television, and that's where we got the advantage of movement and the disadvantage of enormous costs and a huge workforce.
Did you find, because are you a puppeteer? You're not a puppeteer yourself, are you?
No, I'm not, but I do understand very well the power of puppets, because it can be a simple bit of rag like this, which my children used to enjoy, or it can be a sort of more sophisticated caricature of the kind we used to make, and they can be really good. Yeah, they can. You know?
Who's that?
This is we used to call this one Emu. And it's a bit of cloth, and it can be a person just on the end of a hand. Yeah? So this is really the sort of basis of Spitting Image.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? No.
And how long did Spitting Image run for?
It went from 84 to 96, and we used to do, I think, about 18, 20 series a year, so it's a lot of tape.
And one of the stars of Spitting Image was Margaret Thatcher.
Well, yeah. People often say to us now, why don't you start doing it again? I mean, one answer is we're too bloody old. And the other is, it just isn't, the politics aren't there for this sort of extreme thing, you know. It was very, very much focused on Margaret Thatcher, and that was very important to the show. But the interesting thing was a young physicist came to me the other day, actually, and said, well, he was studying in Glasgow. And he used to go and watch a show in a pub in Glasgow, and the golden rule was, nobody talks through the programme. So, you know, that was because of Thatcher. People were very nervous, and especially during when she was brutally destroying the miners. People really did want some sort of safety valve, I think, from what was going on. I mean, the pictures on TV and the press were horrific. It was very difficult for us because we couldn't find a policy of how we could approach the miners' strike, because one, we're working for a big television company, ITV, and two, opinion was split within the company really as to whether the government was right or the miners were right. It was kind of difficult for us to come out with a really solid attitude. The only thing we managed to do was to get an interview between Alistair Burnett and a severed miner's head that exploded halfway through the interview. But
how much power did you? It was like you did have power over the view that the public had over the politicians at the time. You could make or break them. I mean, you turn them into stars, essentially.
Well,
would you agree?
There's two ends to it. I mean, the first end is that we did get quite a lot of approaches from politicians for their puppet to be made. Because if you didn't appear as a puppet on Spitting Image, you hadn't made it as a politician. Jeffrey Archer once sent us voice tapes and photographs of himself, and so we said, right, leave him for a year. On the other hand, David Steele, I think, still maintains that we destroyed his political career, which was a curious thing because he was in business in the Social Democrats with David Owen, the two Davids, you know. At that time, David Owen was a large puppet, and David Steele was a small puppet, because he had this theory early on in the programme that a small puppet would be cheaper to make than a big one. So David Steele was one of the early puppets, and so he could always fit into David Owen's pocket. which was just about what their relationship was. But it wasn't intended. But therefore it did have power, you see. Yeah.
Did Margaret Thatcher have anything to say about this lovely teapot? Did you send her one?
We didn't send Margaret Thatcher a teapot, but we did send Ronald Reagan a coffee pot. And guess what? We never got a reply.
Wonder why. So I'm getting kind of thirsty. Do you fancy having a cuppa?
Well, yeah, why not? There's 8 pints of tea in there.
Wow. Wow. What
Yeah.
is this?
This is Clarissa the crab. A spider crab, actually. It's made by a friend of mine called Wesley West. It was a birthday. She was a birthday present for me. Oh, that you see, as you can see that this is. She has a shell, and this is a can of shell lubricant.
Oh, very
So,
good.
Back on the hook because she's going to need it.
So from a life of spitting image and living in the fast lane in London to sculpture and art in Cornwall, I can see why you've made the move. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, this is actually a very special place to live. It's fantastic. We're very lucky. And we're lucky in the sense that it's also a terrific kind of community. And with that, it's a very strong art community. And after many years in television, I found it necessary to sort of not be heading with a partner, a sort of team of people of about 100, you know, but to be a bit more selfish and to pursue some of my own fascinations and work, which actually in a way were related to puppets and because of movement. So I got interested in abstract movement of mobiles, maybe worked by the wind or whatever, or electric motors.
Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So that's the progression, and at the moment I wouldn't want to go back into television. That's for people like you, a bit younger than me. Yeah?
Peter, thank you very much for letting myself and the filter team come in.
Right, well, thank you. Great. Okay, thanks very much.
See you.